Zookeepers of Reddit, what's the lowdown? Dirty, inside scoop on zoos. Rhinos may look super intimidating, and they can hurt you, but really they just act like big dogs. They love being scratched and will eat all the fruit out of your hand. A zoo type place I visit for work on occasion calls them winners because they roll over and whimper because they want belly rubs with a bristle brush. I volunteer at an aquarium and the people always ask about whether the sharks that are in with the fish ever eat the fish. Officially we say, we keep them well fed enough that they don't. But on more than one morning on my initial walk around I have found remains of fish that definitely weren't feed fish. On a particularly memorable occasion I found the head of a large porgy just sitting on the bottom. A diver went in and got it before guests arrived. I did co-op at one for 2 weeks. The Sumatran tigers had a nice enclosure but the overnight enclosure was very small and depressing. I would walk around the outdoor enclosure hiding meatballs while they were in there, and I was always scared someone would forget I'm out there. There's nothing like that smell of tiger urine. As soon as I first smelled it, it's like an instinct kicked in and all the hairs on my body raised as if I just knew there was something close that could kill me. Also, so many people drop money beneath the walkways. I found a few $5 bills. The poor penguin keepers can never quite get rid of the miasma of dead fish that envelopes them. As for me, the stinkiest job I ever had to do was cleaning out the duck ponds. Managed to empty a whole train carriage that evening, even though I had changed and my work clothes were double bagged. As a teen I worked as a janitor at a private school. One of my duties was dumping out and rinsing the kiddie pool belonging to the duck. The muck on the bottom of that thing, especially in summer, freaking stank. Dead zoo animals are sometimes fed to carnivores. There's a farm zoo in the UK that uses crocodiles to get rid of dead cows. The owner once said he'd like the same end when he dies. We closed the baboon exhibit because a baboon had a stillbirth and the troop was grieving. In reality they were throwing parts of the infant corpse around and there was nothing we could do about it. I worked with wild macaques for a while, and when a baby died the mother would sometimes carry it around for days. Some females would also steal live babies and carry them around like they were their own, except they couldn't nurse them, so they'd slowly starve to death. A few even stole baby raccoons, and that didn't go well either. Went on a behind the scenes tour of the zoo. Saw quite a few bunnies come out during the tour. The neighboring park had a problem with people abandoning pet rabbits. It was pretty clear the dumb bunnies were getting into predator enclosures. Tour guide confirmed they were regularly getting eaten. Tour guide also indicated other urban wildlife, raccoons, possums, squirrels, birds were regularly eaten by predators. It said that when they drained the lion enclosure moat for maintenance it was filled with the bones of small mammals. The most amusing stories were about the orangutans who are wicked smart. Zookeeper trained them to give over items in exchange for food in case they needed to get something from them in the enclosure. But orangutans are smart, and realized if they break things up and hand it back in lots of little pieces they get more food. They disassembled a radio that accidentally got left in the enclosure and when there was an opossum in the enclosure the results were a bit more gruesome. Partner was a zookeeper in Dallas. Safety protocols for when a large, dangerous animal escapes its enclosure dictate that you lock yourself in whatever room you can get to quickest and grab the nearest weapon, which, for most zookeepers, was a broom or rake for cleaning up animal poop. Lion got out of an enclosure when I was at the zoo on a field trip. The keepers all used shovels. I worked in 2 completely different departments, elephants and neonates, but the drama between keepers was insane in both, like, attempted murder level insane. We didn't have mad drama but dang near everyone had slept with everyone. There was a girl from birds that cheated on her boyfriend who was also birds with a guy on small primates. It turned into a whole thing with everyone having an opinion. I worked with large tortoises. We had these 5-gallon buckets for cleaning the poop out of enclosures and other buckets for feeding them fresh grass we cut. The first day on the job I took both buckets into the pen and started by dumping out the grass. Then I went around to collect poop. I heard this awful loud grunting and something breaking. One of the 300-pound males tried to bang the bucket in front of visitors and flattened it. He would even follow me around just in case I might leave more innocent buckets unattended. If you work with the animals there's a good chance you'll not be able to have any kind of social life between the long hours, weekends and the stench. I've been kicked out of stores after work because I apparently stunk way worse than I thought I did, even after scrubbing off. And I'm around animals every day, but I still can't stand when Otacilian keepers are around me in all hands meetings. The rotten fish and ferrety otter smell combo is a gagger. Meanwhile, I work with apes, and they say that I smell like I haven't showed in a decade. Again, even after I shower. Used to work at a zoo a few years ago. An elephant died while I was there, and to transport the body out of its enclosure they had to chop him up. R.I.P. Toto. It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you, Toto, to his enclosure, presumably. Not a zookeeper, but I'm a zoologist. Aquariums have captive breeding programs for some of the dolphins and whales, but they are too difficult to transport for mating, so they have to use artificial insemination, which requires semen samples from whales. Which means that it's someone's job to give hand jobs to dolphins and whales in order to collect the sperm. It's part of the animal's training, and the whales will roll over and present their genitals on command. In dirty jobs, Mike had to jack a horse off. Addition to my comment. Later in the seasons he got to do the same with chickens, except instead of a sleeve, he used a straw to suck the genetic material from the roosters. I worked at a zoo in a northern country, can't say which as it'll give it away, which had a white tiger, and was quite famous for it. One day the zoo announced the tiger had died of natural causes. Whilst working there a few years after he died, I was told by a keeper that there was actually a problem with the electric fencing in his enclosure that the zoo managers refused to pay to get fixed, thinking it would be fine. He was electrocuted to death a few weeks after they found the problem. They covered the whole thing up by saying they weren't sure how he died, but that he was old. It's still a zoo secret to this day. Our camels will spit if you pee them off, and it's not just saliva like most people think. You really don't want to upset our camels if you have any plans the rest of the week. Please and thank you. I spent time with a young Bactrian camel a few years back. Cute little crap was always after hugs and scratches and would get stroppy if anyone dared to interrupt. Not quite a zookeeper, but in training to be one. The zebras and Przewalski's horses are ruthless and will tear apart any unfortunate wild kangaroo that dares break into an enclosure. They love the thrill of the chase, and the subsequent kill when they get bored. A large kangaroo won't frick around. That'd be a brutal fight. Former co-worker got a job at the aquarium. He was basically the night watchman, making sure nothing exploded when the aquarium was closed. The thing is, he can't actually do anything about it. A ray jumped out of the open touch pool, so he gently picked it up and set it back in the tank. No harm done. Ray is fine. He got chewed the frick out for handling an animal. Policy is to call the expert handler for that department and have them come in, to avoid any liability and whatnot. By the time you get them to pick up the phone at 3 AM, get up, and drive into the city, it'll be like 40 minutes at best, assuming they came in at all. So his job was really to just stand there staring as the animal suffocated. He ended up quitting when he tried to call out sick because he had the flu so bad he literally couldn't stand up straight, and part of the job was to walk the narrow hanging walkway over the largest tank in the world, which includes sharks, alone, at night, and they told him to come in anyway. I used to volunteer weekly at a large zoo, and at one point management started doing monthly dangerous animal escape drills. Someone would run around in a lion onishi and we'd have to react as if one of the large animals had escaped. It was hilarious, but one of the funniest things I was taught was that if an incident did occur, you have to tell the nearby guests to get inside only once. If after that they refused to follow you indoors, the protocol was to hole up in the large activity center buildings. You're to leave them there, go inside yourself and lock the doors. It makes sense because people can be very stupid and you don't want to risk everyone's lives because of one Karen. But it amused me no end that the protocol was to just let them get mauled. The amount of injuries you can just casually pick up from animals is crazy. I've been kicked in the chest by a kangaroo, almost raped by an emu, attacked by a wombat and a bat, bitten by a monitor lizard and a carpet python, had a rhino charge at me, and been scratched by a macaque. My old boss has this bad butt scar from a snow leopard attack, and this guy I work with now has his entire left forearm mangled from an orangutan attack. It also shocks you how dumb people can be. There can be a huge sign that says hello, I'm an echidna, not a porcupine, and people will still ask if that's a baby porcupine. You get used to the same jokes every day, like when you're cleaning up the outside enclosures. In view of the guests, someone will eventually say, "Oh, what a strange animal. I wonder what kind it is," in regards to seeing a human. Or the amount of people who scream hump day when they see a camel. I have no qualms about picking up animal crap barehanded. I know what my animals have been eating. I know what's in their digestive systems. And to me that makes it more bearable. I can have long discussions about poop consistency with my co-workers. And in fact, that's what a lot of general health talks are about. Homer's stool was a little looser than normal this morning. I wonder if something happened overnight to stress him out. You get used to being stinky. I currently work 8+ hours with primates daily, and I feel awful for the people who share a space with me when I go to the gym directly after work. Primate poop smells very similarly to human poop. When I was at the zoo, I smelled exclusively of rhino pee and I could not get the smell off of me. I had to draft the zoo's contingency plan for all sorts of emergencies. Flood, tornado, extreme heat, war or attacks, you name it. The plan included a prioritized list of which animals in the collection we would have to sacrifice to feed to the other animals in extreme situations. I literally created a zoo food chain. Humans were left off the list entirely. My wife was a zookeeper and I used to volunteer there a lot. 1. Most of zookeeping is just picking up poop and delivering food. 2. The animal that was least scary was a cheetah. They were pretty cool, ignoring everything as long as they had food. The most scary to me were the giraffes. Back then you went into the enclosure with them and they'd sometimes swing their heads around and try to hit you just to be pricks. You had to be careful. 3. The job would actually be fantastic if they didn't let people into the zoo. When I was a kid at a zoo, I had a giraffe lick my head and try to eat my hair clip. 10/10 scared of giraffes. I spoke to a zookeeper at the National Zoo in DC. We were watching another keeper inside the cheetah enclosure and I asked him about the danger involved. He said a cheetah is harmless to an adult human because it only hunts smaller creatures. I asked which creature was the worst to go in with, expecting hippo, elephant or croc as an answer. Without hesitating he said zebras, then leaned close and whispered they are the biggest buttholes. They will bite and kick for no reason. I still think it's hilarious that of all the teeth and claws out there, it's stripped donkey horses that are the worst. I believe the keeper on that. Zebras can be difficult to handle. When you're cleaning underneath the perches, parrots will wait for you to look up before taking a crap. They have a good aim. That's how you get crap in the mouth. Don't look up. Fun fact about the local zoo I learned when I worked maintenance. There is a wolf enclosure. There is info about the wolves, it's maintained. They are just shy and their shelter ATM. There are no wolves. Never was. I freaking knew it. I heard about this from a co-worker at a small zoo I used to work at. If any animal escapes before the zoo opens to the public, the zoo is supposed to shut down completely for the day. Often though, for smaller zoos they can't afford to lose a day open to the public. So if some specific types of animals escape, such as reptiles or small animals, they will just keep open while having keepers look for the animal. This sort of thing wouldn't fly by me on my days as a keeper. I never had anything escape other than a harmless tortoise. But I remember hearing from other co-workers that they just listened to our boss and opened even though a small but somewhat venomous snake was on the loose. If you don't mind me asking, how does a tortoise escape? Used to work at a zoo. Cold weather makes the animals more active, so go on a chilly day or first thing in the morning to see the best show from the animals. Also, those free roaming peacocks are really stupid and sometimes go in the lions exhibit and get torn up. My mom worked at a zoo when I was a kid and there were some things that were kept under wraps. For one, a hyena escaped once and they had to track it down. Also, a pack of dogs got into the zoo and killed most of the wallabies. The worst story was that a group of teenagers broke in the 80s and pulled the legs off of the flamingos. That one always really bothered me. At my old job we had a man pick up a flamingo and slam it into the ground. The poor flamingo was put down because its injuries were too severe. The man served jail time if I recall correctly, and the area where the flamingos were accessible was closed to the public. The poor flamingo had been an animal ambassador and was beloved in the area. People are horrendous to animals, especially birds. I'm a small animal vet now but worked in a zoo before vet school. Zoos are one of the biggest purchases of Calvin Klein's Obsession cologne. The cologne has animal musk in it and it drives the big cats wild. We used to spray it on everything. That explains all the cougars at the bar when you wear it in public. The amount of dumbasses who complain to management about paying to go to the zoo, then not seeing any animals is unreal. Like, what do you want us to do? Go in there with sticks and chase them out of their hidey holes? Sorry buddy, not going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but I certainly would pay extra to see a slapstick zookeeper animal chase. The path to being a keeper is rough. It can literally start with working a concession stand at a zoo with a college degree making minimum wage, and the path to mobility being talking to the other keepers to the point they'll let you clean the cage of the animals they keep. Do that a few years and hope that position opens. Not necessarily one that you want, but any, because getting in the door is hard, high demand, low supply. It is a job where you really need to love the work and be okay not making much money. Source: friend followed this path at a zoo that is known the world over. I had applied to be a keeper at my local zoo, thinking there wouldn't be many keepers or people with the experience and degree they needed. PFFFT. There were 361 applicants. People were excited about the government benefits and the pay, $16 HR. Everybody's overeducated and wildly underpaid. Typically most single people can last about 2-3 years before they have to move on. The ones with longevity have spouses who bring home the bread and let them chase their dreams. Winters suck. Part-time hours and being outside in the cold. The dolphin trainers are stuck up. They are like the jocks in high school. They usually try to stay in shape because wetsuits aren't flattering. They perform daily and people love them so they have an ego. You dread when a co-worker gets pregnant because you'll have to pick up extra tasks. I was a keeper aide, which is just an unpaid volunteer who is there to gain experience for eventually working at the zoo. After 2 years of doing all of the zookeeper's cleaning work, I just moved on because the zoo was government funded and therefore no one ever left due to the benefits. I enjoyed my experience and the people I met, but couldn't clean cages for free forever. Not a zookeeper, but my 2 next door neighbors are. One of them told me all animals have to get an autopsy immediately post-mortem, and her team has the luxury of not having an external team to do so. She has to cut open the animals she so tenderly loves and cares for immediately after they die without time to grieve and see all their viscera, even if the cause of death is already known, since they want to check for any other issues such as parasites, cancer, genetic problems, etc. Worst part is she also takes care of some rather larger animals like antelopes, giraffes, and cheetahs, so you can imagine both the attachment over the years and the horrid reality of excavating every crevice of a dead giraffe. She still loves her job very much, but struggles with this. Her partner works with primates and they have their own autopsy team, so he gets to avoid carving up his babies, but she's had to learn to dissociate emotionally to get through the tougher moments. Worked in an animal refuge in Bolivia. We were told on our first day not to let the tapir turn its back on you. Forgetting that vital piece of info. 3 days later I was filming the tapir as it starts to turn its back on me and my friend. Before we could react, it sklonged did a 180 and projectile cummed all over my phone and gaping mouth. We couldn't get rid of the smell for days. If you ever come close to a tapir, do not let it turn its back on you. I was expecting a kick, not a facial WTF. There's no dirty secrets as far as shady practices or anything, but if you mean literally, oh yeah, it's dirty. I cleaned up over 100 pounds of cat shit just today, and even after I showered my husband still says I smell overwhelmingly of cat pee. There's no dirty secrets as far as shady practices or anything. I feel like OP was wanting this but all they got was animals can be gross and smell bad lol. Some people like to bring fruit and stuff to throw into the animals' cages, even though they're not supposed to. If you're around and someone throws a pineapple into the gorilla or chimpanzee dens, gtfo, they will throw that thing full blast at someone. I saw a man get hit full force right in the side of the head and he was lights out. Pineapple exploded on impact. Paramedics came and everything. I work with dolphins. These creatures are sexual as frick. We have 2 smaller boys together and they've been seen stimulating each other. Our 3 female dolphins have freshwater hoses that lead into the pool to play with. They flip themselves upside down, lay on the surface, and let the water do its thing. We also have another male dolphin separate from the others that likes to show his dong to families. Pretty funny to watch TBH. Dolphins are weird. I worked in the zoo's restaurant, so I didn't get a lot of info on the animal side of things. The one thing that even low-level cashiers learned, though, was the Mr. Wallaby code. The manager on duty in each department carried a walkie-talkie, and if an animal ever escaped, the code to announce its location was Mr. Wallaby, please meet Mr. Escaped Animal at animal's location. I kinda hoped we'd have one with a small, harmless animal that would be easy to catch again, just to see the excitement. Making chicken salad sandwiches all day got a little monotonous. If you have worked with them then you probably already know, but one swift kick from an ostrich can kill you. Like they will literally disembowel you. Every time I see a video of someone getting up close to one, I can't help but cringe. One of our head keepers had actually lost part of their ear to one. The most dangerous feared animal in case of an escape is not, as you may think, lions, tigers or other large carnivores. It's the chimps. Those things will rip your arm off and beat you to death with the bloody end as soon as look at you. Oh yay. Everyone gets nervous about the big animals, but a chimp will frick you up. Not a zookeeper but worked in a zoo's warehouse for a couple years. Next time you go, ask someone which animals are killed on sight in an escape. The answers will surprise you. Lions and tigers are typically on the track and capture list, but a jaguar the size of a golden retriever is coss. The zoo I was with, the 2 jags were the only animals on site that were on the shoot to kill list. Even the silverback was the trank first list. At our zoo the Mongolian wild horse was killed on sight. He will attack and he's smart about it. He killed one mare and has injured several keepers. Back in the day one of the bears would routinely escape and pose for pictures with people and they'd lure him back in with treats. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.